Hi everyone. Well, first I just want to say I'm really touched that so many of you want to keep hearing more about this. Honestly, I've been getting a bit nervous about making another video because I didn't expect so many of you to want to see them. So now I feel like this pressure, and I hope it's worthwhile. I don't know. I asked my husband, I'm like, I don't know why people want to hear me talk, because I don't think what my mind is doing is that interesting. And then I thought, well, maybe they want to watch my descent into madness or something. And if that's why you're here, I guess welcome. We'll see how it goes. But no, I don't have the words to say how nice it is, all the wonderful comments and everything, and the interest that's there. And everybody, the majority of people have been really, really sweet and understanding, and I do really appreciate it. So I really want to make sure I'm doing a good job. First, obviously, I want to say I'm not an expert. I put that first video up to just kind of talk about what I was experiencing in my mind. And obviously, everybody that has aphantasia will have slightly different things. So I'm not speaking for everybody. And also, I didn't go to school for neuroscience, so I don't really know everything in the brain, and I'm kind of learning along with you. So this is more just, my opinions and my feelings. And if you feel like I'm saying something wrong, then it's fine. You can let me know, and I'm always interested in learning more. I have been trying to read some more research into the inner voice, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But first, I think honestly, I don't really understand what is going on in the typical brain, because when I made my first video and I found out that people can see things in their head, I was thinking that you just call it up when you want to. You want to think about a memory, and so you can make the memory show up, or you want to imagine your dream world fantasy, and you would make it come up. I really did not understand that you guys have pictures going all the time. I mean, is that right? I've been there's been lots of comments, on my first video, and I've been trying to write to them and asking questions, because people keep asking me things like if you need to find your car, how do you find it? And to me, I'm like, well, you just know where your car is. So I don't understand. So when you have to think about where is my car, you always need to see a picture of your car? Or sometimes you just know where it is. If you're at a parking lot at the mall or something. Yeah, so it's just, I really just don't get it. So I actually had a thought, look, 600 subscribers, so I decided to bring a visual. So I have 2 kids, so we just have children's books everywhere. But the other night, I was getting ready, putting the kids to sleep, and this is what they wanted to read, and we were doing this look and find thing, and it made me kind of have this aha. And I asked my husband about it, and now I'm going to ask you about it. So for example, you get this little look and find, and if I point at this, who is this? Okay. Now for me, I just know it's Mrs. Potts. Now, if you've never seen Beauty and the Beast, then you won't know who it is. But I'm assuming everybody out there has seen Beauty and the Beast. So I decided, I said, well, how does my husband know it's Mrs. Potts? Because I don't hear a voice telling me it's Mrs. Potts. I don't see a picture of Mrs. Potts. I just know it's Mrs. Potts. So I just say it. So I asked him, and he said when he sees this, he gets a visual of a memory. When he was a kid, they had the laser disc version of Beauty and the Beast. So he gets a picture of them putting the laser disc in. Okay, so I don't know how that works, but so for you guys, if I ask you that, are you always getting a picture? Do you have to always get a picture to remember something? I guess is what I'm asking, because I don't really get it. And then from the picture, how do you make the right word? How do you know what you're saying is the right word? Because I feel like sometimes maybe I'm explaining things too complicated, because I think when I say something, it's just the same way you say it, except the picture's not there. So I'm still just getting there the same way, just without the picture. Does that help? Anyway, so that was my little visual. And if you want to let me know how you do that, I would love to hear it, because I still don't get it. But the purpose of today's talk was supposed to be Daydreams. Now, I said something in my first video about like it never dawned on me that the word image was in imagination. I just thought imagination was when you make up things. And so I'm sure to you it's strange. How can you have an imagination without the images, right? So I have a little story. So after I made my last video, I went out into the kitchen and I'm sitting there and my husband asked me like, what are you thinking? Now I don't hear words talking to me in my head and I don't see pictures, and I just blurted out, well, if there's an alien race that's controlling a population of humans, do you think they're controlling me because I don't have any pictures or voices, or do you think they're controlling everybody else with the pictures and voices? And my husband just kind of got up and he said, well, I guess you still have your imagination. He did not answer the question though. So if anybody asks, I think he is the alien. So anyway, so yes, I have an imagination. And yes, these things, I still say crazy imagination things, but I don't see it in my head. And so today, before I made this video, I asked him, if you were going to say that to me, would you have a picture of aliens in your head first? And he said yes. So then it makes me wonder, how do you talk about things that you don't know what they are? If somebody said a word to you and you don't know what it is, what would you imagine and how would you talk about it? So I don't get it. So I don't know. So yes, I do have an imagination. And yes, I would like to know how you speak if you don't get a picture that comes up, if you usually get pictures. So those are two things. Now, as for the daydreaming, I don't really daydream. I actually had the idea for this video. I was at my daughter's basketball practice and she's sitting there drinking her water bottle and I'm calling her name, and she's just like staring off into space. And I had to go up and like touch her on the arm. Like, can you hear me? And it dawned on me for the first time in my life, oh, she's probably like seeing things that aren't there. And now I understand what you guys are all doing. Yeah, I've never done that. I've never like sat off and like imagine all these things in my head and I lose focus and I have no idea what's going on around me. That has never happened. So I don't really daydream. It's not really a thing. Now, when I was a kid, more than now, because now I'm old and I just want to sleep. But when I was a kid and I couldn't get to sleep and I was like laying in bed, I would dream things, fantasize, build fantasies, this kind of thing. I mean, I was a girl in the 80s, so I wanted to be Princess Leia. Who didn't, right? So, I would imagine these things, living with the Ewoks or whatever. But the thing is, for me, when I imagine them, there are no pictures. And I'm kind of doing it in that thought rendering voice. So it doesn't sound like me. I'm not acting it out. I don't hear the voice of the Ewoks or anything like this. It's just kind of like a stream of consciousness kind of thing. It's not like there's a definite script and I'm hearing every word, but I just kind of build this mesh of ideas in there. Now, this is interesting, and I did say I wanted to talk about this, the inner voice thing. So in my last video, if you watched it, I talked about how I have like this forced inner voice that I can make happen, but it doesn't sound like anybody. It doesn't have pitch. It doesn't have timbre. I can't slow it up or slow it down. I can't speed it up. It's just there. I only hear it when I'm reading or when I'm writing or when I'm like trying to figure out like a sentence for a speech or an, job interview, something like this, or when I'm trying to build these fantasies. That's the only time I can use this. Now, the funny thing is, on the last video, a lot of people heard me describe it and they said, oh, that's an inner voice and I have one. And then a lot of people told me, yes, I don't have an inner voice and that's what my no voice sounds like. So do I have an inner voice? I have no idea. I did do some research. I haven't done enough. I need to do some more. But I did do some research and it has been studied in fMRI machines that when you force your inner voice to speak, like they tell you, like think of what you would say to your husband when you go home today, right? They force you to think something in your inner voice. A different part of your brain lights up than if you had a spontaneous thought. Like I'm assuming something like, you know, you look terrible in that shirt. Why are you wearing that today? So it does make me think these are two different parts of the brain. So whether or not they should be called the same thing, I don't know. So I don't feel I have an inner monologue. I feel like an inner monologue narrates your day. It says things to you. Maybe you want to hear it. Maybe you don't. I can't do that. I can't have conversations in my head. I don't work things out in my head by talking around it. I can't do any of that. So all I have is this weird kind of working memory thought rendering. So I feel it is different. Maybe you agree with me and maybe you don't. I don't know. I don't know. So it's all up to interpretation. So however you feel it should be called. I think the clearest way I can say is I don't have like spontaneous inner voices coming to me. So I don't have any of that. So anyway, so for when I'm building like a dream or a fantasy in my head, it's all completely directed by me. I'm thinking that when you guys build your fantasies, the reason you get so immersed in them is because you kind of start them off and then they just kind of go. This might be wrong. I don't know. But I feel like I have to be very active in mine. So I can't really just zone out and let it play. I can't do that. The other thing too is this working memory that I use to build these dreams. It's not very reliable and it seems to have a character limit. So it's kind of like you're writing a thesis in Notepad on your computer. Do you know what I mean? Like it just doesn't really work very well. Yeah, so I can't hold on to a lot. Yeah, so when I try to like build a fantasy, I kind of am like reliving the same short thing over and over and over again. And again, like I can't hear what the characters in my fantasy are saying. So like if I decided I want to like build a fantasy where I'm like going to lunch with Emma Thompson and Hugh Jackman, who both have very distinctive accents, I would know in my head that it's them, and I would know in my head like what we're doing and the idea of what we're talking about, but I wouldn't hear it in their voice, in their accent. They wouldn't sound male or female. It would just be like this ghost thought speak. So interestingly enough, I've talked to a few other people. When I was a child, I actually wrote a lot. I had, like this really old crazy laptop. It was like this big, and like the screen was just like this big, and it was like greenish, and it only ran word processing. Like this is how old I am. And I would fill discs, those 3.5-inch floppy disks, I would fill them with stuff I was writing. I would come home from school and that's what I would do. I would just sit there and like write out these fantasies that I was building in my head. And it seems like other people like me were doing the same thing. So there must be something to this. We have these ideas in our head. We're trying to build dreams or fantasies in our head, and we can't fit them because we can't like talk to ourselves in our head. We can't build conversations and do this kind of stuff. So we have to get it out somehow. So we get it out with writing. Just, I don't know. It's just a thought. It's just what I think. I've spoken to a few people who did the same thing that I did. So it makes me think there might be a pattern there. But again, I can't speak for everybody that has aphantasia. So it might just be I have similarities with some people. But for me, that's how I did my dream world, my fantasy world. So yes, I do not daydream like you. Yeah. I've never been able to like do that. Just dream and let everything go. I can zone out. I talked about this in one of my comments too. When I zone out, I do feel like after my husband said like he's looking behind his eyeballs, I was thinking about it. I'm like, when I zone out, like I'm looking behind my eyeballs. So I feel like if that little whatever HDMI cable that seems not to be connected to my brain, if it were connected, I feel like I would be seeing images right then, but I'm not. So when I zone out, it just means everything's blank. So it's not just I don't have sound, I don't have pictures. I also like don't feel my brain whirring anymore. So it's just kind of everything's out. So anyway, that's all I wanted to talk about tonight. Sorry it's been a while since I put up a video. I'm kind of like, there's so many things, like all your comments. I've been reading all of them and they're all great, and it gives me so many ideas, and I think maybe I'm kind of overloaded and I don't really know what to do next. But I hope this was helpful. I hope I gave some good information. And again, I just really appreciate everybody's kindness and yeah, it's been really wonderful, and I do want to thank you all. Yeah. So if you have any questions, please leave the comments. I'm trying really hard to get to all of them and answer them as best as I can. But yeah, it was nice talking to you again. Bye.